Hi everyone, this is Rachel from Minerva and I'm really excited about today's video. I'm going to show you how to make your own custom embroidered pocket for Simplicity 8230. Now, this method of customization can work for any pattern, ones that you've made yourself, clothes that's in your wardrobe already. You can jazz up a well-worn t-shirt or even repair holes and worn patches. So embroidery really is just one of these great little techniques that I think just make an item of clothing unique to you. Now, embroidery is a really fun way to bring that little special something to your handmade wardrobe. I've done it quite a lot in the past with various different clothes. Here are some of my favourite pieces. This t-shirt here, the bunny patch pocket, this holiday themed collar. I just wanted something cute for Halloween. And I particularly love this swing dress that I made with wool, tapestry wool and embroidery floss combination, and that I actually got from a pattern book, which was really fun. These are the materials you're going to need to get started. So you're going to need the piece of fabric that you're going to embroider on. This is the pocket piece from Simplicity 8230, so you'll need your pattern as well. You are also going to need an embroidery hoop, your coloured threads. You will need an embroidery needle, something that's suitable for the size of your fabric. And what I mean by that is if your fabric's quite delicate, make sure that your needle won't be poking holes through it. It's not too big. You might want that one quite sharp, for example. You'll also need some embroidery scissors or just something to snip threads. Another handy thing would be a pattern or design that you can transfer to your fabric. I got this pattern free from the DMC website. They have plenty of different designs to suit all kinds of styles, and these patterns are great because they not only give you the designs to trace off, but they also give you stitch information and thread colours. So the colours I've picked today were all following this pattern. In addition to your pattern, you're going to want something to trace the pattern onto your fabric. This is embroidery transfer paper. So adding embroidery to your garment is fairly straightforward, but there are a few things to consider. So for example, I want to sew view A of this pattern, and these pockets, although cute patch pockets, do have pleats at the top and the bottom. So we need to bear this in mind when deciding on placement of the embroidery motif. So one of the best ways to do that is to trace off your pleat markings, roughly pleat and pin, and see what shape your final pocket is going to be, and then decide where to place your motif. Right, so now we have the shape of the pocket roughly, and as we can see, a nice little fold in the middle, which is very attractive, but we don't want an embroidery motif to get lost in that little fold. So we're going to have motifs going up here perhaps and here, but making sure they're not too high, because this pocket also has a second piece, band, which goes along the top. So we don't want the embroidery to get lost in that seam either. So we're going to have it here and here. Okay, so once you've got an idea of your placement for the motif, you're going to want to transfer the design with the same paper as we used for the markings. So I'm going to be using this lovely monstera leaf here and this Maranta leaf, just because I think they're just a nice size, and I like how this one curves this way and this one curves that way. Now, because of the curves and the fact that these are two pockets, I'm going to want them to mirror each other as opposed to being perfectly symmetrical. And I have already done the other pockets, so I'm going to turn this paper over in order to trace the outlines. As you can see, I've got this Maranta leaf curving to the centre on the left hand side and the Monstera leaf on the right hand side also curving kind of to the centre, and I'm going to want opposites, I think. So I think on the other pocket I want the Maranta leaf to be here and the Monstera leaf to be here, and in order to do that you just flip your design. You place your coloured transfer paper roughly in the area where you want your leaf to be. I find you can't get too precious about this. You can always adjust it if you've transferred it and you don't like where it's sat. Of course, you don't have to get your pattern from the DMC website. They're just really handy and comprehensive, especially if you're a beginner. You can get inspiration from anywhere. You can design it yourself, or I've often found bits of artwork that I've liked and transferred a chunk and then attributed it to the artist. That's always fun, and I quite like seeing their work in a different medium sometimes. Now, you can't really see it so well because this is quite a dark coloured linen, but what you can do is go over the design with a water-soluble pencil. I'll have a watercolour pencil, or you can get specific marker pens that you can draw directly onto the fabric and it fades over time, so you can always make the design a little bit darker so it's easier to follow when you're embroidering. Right, yes, so they aren't very clear at all, so I'm going to just go over it with my, my aquarelle pencil, it's a watercolour pencil. You won't see it at all and it won't bleed into the rest of the fabric, so just make sure that whatever pen, pencil you use is going to be okay with your fabric. At this stage, it's important just to focus on outline and shape. The more basic, the better, I think. You can always add more detail as you go along with embroidery floss, but at this early stage, too much detail can get a little bit difficult to decipher, so I want to make sure I can indicate the outline, shape of the leaves, and where there are holes in the plant, because that's what makes a monstera leaf a monstera leaf. What I quite like about this process, about embroidering onto clothing, is it's a bit like doodling. You can really do whatever you like. I've seen people embroider tiny little creatures just popping out of pockets, which is really, really cute. You can go wild, really. If there's a character that you love, or you have a favourite animal, you can just add it onto everything. Monogram, that kind of thing. But I particularly love plants, so I just really wanted kind of a very pared back silhouette with a tiny pop of some interest. So that's why I thought this was absolutely perfect for embroidery. So once your design is traced out, it's time to mount it in your embroidery hoop. So you want to, if you've got pins or anything holding your pleats in place, take those out, and you can see the designs really are quite far to the side of the pocket, and when we fold it back in, they'll be in the centre. An embroidery hoop is not absolutely essential, but it really will help with the overall comfort of your embroidery experience. So it tensions the fabric for you, so you don't have to hold your hand really tight for a long time, and just makes it a bit easier to see as well. Now, an important thing with the embroidery hoop is that you don't over tension the fabric, because that's going to stretch it out and make it misshapen, or even cause it to get little holes or tear. Another important thing to remember is that once you've done embroidering, take it out of the hoop. Don't leave it in the hoop overnight, just in a bag, that kind of a thing, because it will just stretch the fabric, put it under strain, and really you just want it nice and taut for when you're embroidering, and that's it. Pop. Design fairly central, as central as you can. Make it. Now you'll notice I used pinking shears for cutting out my pocket pieces from the pattern, and that's because I didn't want the linen to fray as I was putting it in and out of the embroidery hoop and messing around with it and handling it. So that's something to consider with your particular fabric as well. Now, I want to make sure it's loose. Pop it on top. Got a little bit of a spring, that's good. You don't want it too loose so it's sagging in the middle, otherwise that's not going to be very helpful at all. And then when you take it out, the tension of the stitches is not going to match the tension of the pocket. So it's quite important to keep the tension taut, not so tight that it's just going to stretch, but you don't want it too loose either. You just want a nice kind of resistance, bit springy, for the needle to go in. Yeah, that's it with the hoop. So I think we're ready to get embroidering. So I promise you don't need to be an expert in order to do this. In fact, I think little embroidery motifs like this are a really good way of practicing your stitches. I've done entire motifs in just backstitch and straight filling stitches, and that's simply because I didn't know any of the other stitches, and these are actually, I'll be honest, my first time doing long and short stitch, which is the stitch that DMC recommend for filling in this monstera leaf. And basically it's exactly the same as satin stitch, except you vary the length of the stitches. Some are long and then some are short. Who would have thought? Now I begin with tying a knot. This, I think, is a proper embroiderer no-no. But with this being an item of clothing, I think it's quite important that the ends are secure as possible, because a pocket's going to see a lot of use. I like to put things in my pockets, so I just absolutely want 100% security, or as 100% as I can make it, so nothing unravels. But I think a real embroiderer would be unimpressed with my knot. One of the important things with filling and embroidery stitches is direction. On the pattern, we have this central line running through the monstera leaf. And if you think about perhaps a painting or a doodle or any kind of thing of a monstera leaf, it has lines coming outwards from the centre point in the direction of the leaves. And that's what you want to achieve with the direction of your stitches in order to create that slight 3D effect. So I'm going to start with a short stitch. Come out next to it, a bit further below for my long stitch. And then we'll have short stitch again. Now, the great thing about the DMC patterns, not only do they tell you what colours thread to use and what stitches to use to achieve your lovely motif, They also tell you how many strands of thread to use, particularly and specifically to do with the size of the pattern as it's printed. It's not been enlarged in any way. So for this, I'm using 2 strands of thread. I've split the thread. I have cut a length off. You can see it's got 6 individual strands here, and I'm just using 2 of them. I've split them off like this. If your embroidery motif was larger, you could get away with more strands, or smaller, slightly fewer strands. It's quite customizable. Furthermore, with the Maranta leaf, the pink sort of veiny bits that run throughout the leaf are done in a chain stitch, which gives it a slight 3D effect, and you might want to use 3 strands rather than 2 just to make it really stand out against the 2 different greens. Now I'm making my stitches too short here, so with long and short stitch it really is long and then not so long. I feel like long and not so long stitch is a mouthful, but that's what you're doing really. And if you're sewing and you realise, oh, I've done 2 long stitches together, no one's going to come and give you bad marks for that. They're just going to be impressed that you embroidered anything really. Just use your judgment and honestly just relax and enjoy it. It's such a lovely meditative process. Just listen to some nice music or watch a film on in the background. Now when you've reached the end of your little bit of thread, and I only had a very small piece, again we're going to want to fasten it off at the back. So what I like to do is just run it through the stitches. Don't worry at this stage about tying it into a knot or anything like that, because as I said earlier, with it being a pocket and it's going to see a lot of use, we're going to line these pockets with another piece of the pocket fabric. This is an additional step, not in the pattern, but I feel it's just going to make sure everything's nice and enclosed and safe and secure. And then also if you're wearing any rings, and my wedding ring, it's just going to catch if you're going in and out of a pocket really quickly. So this is just going to prevent any of that. If you don't want to line your pocket, you can also get a small piece of interfacing the size of the motif and iron it onto the back. That will secure it in place as well, but do bear in mind with that, depending on the location of the motif and the type of fabric you've got, that it might show through the interfacing on the other side, or even distort the way the fabric sits. Just bear all of these things in mind. So once your pocket is finished and you pop it out the hoop and you're happy with all of the stitching and the detailing and all of the back, as neat as you can make it really, nothing too special, just making sure the threads aren't too long, it's time to press the finished piece. It's quite important to press it without squishing the embroidery. You don't want to flatten it or ruin it in any way. So you want kind of nice, gentle pressing. You want it nice and smooth, because once it's on your garment, sewn in place, that's it then. There's no rescuing it. So get it exactly how you want it to look before sewing it to your garment. Another thing with pressing is, depending on how large and your motif is and your tension and things like that, your fabric will have pulled in a little bit. It will have shrunk where the motif sits. So it's nothing dramatic, and nothing that your seam allowance won't cover. You can always leave yourself a bit of extra seam allowance if you are concerned. But pressing will stretch it all back out and make it all lay as flat as possible. So once you've finished embroidering and you've pressed it all, you can then go about with your method of backing, so with the interfacing, or as I will be doing with this, sewing lining. So yeah, run it through the sewing machine with wrong sides together, bag it out, press it, that kind of a thing, and you can use it as you would the normal pattern piece as part of the sewing instructions, and then you just make up the rest of the garments and it's done. A customised patch pocket for Simplicity 8230 or whatever pattern you decide to customise for yourself. It really works with anything. As I said in the introduction to this video, you can use this method to jazz up your current clothes, whether they are from a shop or ones you've made yourself. You can also use it to mend clothes or disguise mending that perhaps doesn't look so nice. There's the whole wonderful sort of subculture to do with visible mending, which I very much enjoy. So rather than trying to disguise a hole, you go around it and create an eyelet, and it just looks very decorative and pretty, and it's about celebrating the little like imperfections, which I think is a very nice philosophy. In terms of caring for your now beautifully embroidered homemade garments, you can absolutely wash this as you would normally wash your handmade wardrobe items, but I would suggest turning it inside out so it's not embroidery facing the outside with all of the other clothes in the washing machine drum. Or you could put it in a delicates bag or a pillowcase, and this just stops any buttons or hooks from getting into threads and pulling them, and it will also stop any sort of fluffy bits from your other clothes getting all caught up in it as well and creating like a little halo of fuzz and ruining your really beautiful hard work. You don't want that. So yeah, just pop it in a laundry bag or turn it inside out and you'll be fine. And that is how you create an embroidered patch pocket to customise any of your garments. You can do this for Simplicity 230 like me, or go wild, add it onto your kids' clothes, your mum's clothes, your dad's clothes, your own clothes, gifts, napkins, go for it. Go wild. It's really so much fun, and you'll just want to embroider everything, I think. I know I do. So thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. I certainly enjoyed making it and putting this project together for you. I hope you'll give it a go. Please do tag us with the projects that you have made. Leave photos and comments if any questions that you have in the comments section below. Please like this video and don't forget to follow along. If you liked this video and want to get more involved, you can make your own free Minerva profile where you can go through everyone's projects, like things, you can save projects, save items that you might want to buy in the future, maybe some embroidery threads, which will all be linked below, as will the pattern and other materials. You can also join the Minerva Craft Club and get a small discount upon joining, along with a great newsletter. So do consider signing up for that, it's great. If you wish to follow along with all of the things that I'm making, embroidering, sewing, all of those types of things, I'm Asgard and Cake, and you can find a link for my profile below. Do follow me. I would love to share some of the things that I make with you, and I would also love to see the things you've been making as well. If you have any questions or queries about this video today, about anything that I've shown you, please do ask below. We'll get back to you and help you with those. Also, do let us know what you would embroider, what kind of patterns, what motifs, how would you go about jazzing things up for yourself. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again next time.